Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. You already knew that this is the song that I was going to play.
But
welcome to NOCLIP. I'm Chad Ruthermond.
I'm JJ Artemis.
and I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today we're going to be talking about Halo. Halo was a game that was released in 2001 on the Xbox. And it was developed by Bungie and published by Microsoft Game Studios. Halo is a first-person shooter, and that is significant for 2001, and it will never have been again. Halo kind of took the first-person shooter genre and moved it to consoles in a way that made it so successful that it defined how games were made for Americans for like a decade.
Oh yeah, it especially impacted the following console generation.
Yeah.
Like it would not have looked even close to the same without Halo.
And I want to get into that impact and everything. And I want to get into the presentation and everything that made Halo such a groundbreaking game when it released. But first, we all played Halo on the Master Chief Collection, correct? On PC?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't have just like a big ass. I don't have a truck to bring me an Xbox now.
You need a truck just for the controller.
Yeah, it's fucking huge.
That also assumes that the Xbox is functioning, that there literally is a functioning
There's
Xbox.
a working Xbox somewhere in America.
And I don't count the Xboxes that are on life support, like right now, that are connected.
See, I know that the 360 has that reputation, but I was unsure about the original Xbox.
The Xbox didn't have it as bad. Nothing was as popularized as the Red Ring of Death, but people, because of the infrastructure of the Xbox and how much closer that it was to a conventional PC than any console that has released, to my knowledge, before or since, that a lot of people performed kind of creepy medical experiments upon the Xbox.
Backwards engineer.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I remember in my youngest youthful days, that it was very popular to find sketchy electronics people and force the Xbox OS to recognize external hard drives, and then you could just pirate every video game on the Xbox and then have an Xbox box that was like two boxes on top of each other.
Right.
That was the X Cube. That was perfect.
Yeah. And also, I used mine to build a shed, so...
What?
As a joke, because they're really big and would make a sturdy building material.
The X shed.
The X
You
shed.
just put down like the Xboxes and like.
And put some mortar over it, yeah.
Good foundation.
I know people did similar things with the Dreamcast because
Yeah.
it had like a more computer operating system.
I love the amount of Nintendo bias that we have on this podcast, again, because the moment we start talking about an Xbox game, we're instantly like, remember how that was like kind of a computer and also it was really big, and et cetera, all of these interesting hardware things.
All that stuff I think is really relevant to Halo, though.
It's true. I mean, there would not be as many Xboxes in the world if Halo did not exist.
Oh, no. Not even. It's maybe the most important launch title ever.
I would
right?
kind of agree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say, as I was leading into earlier, and then we got very distracted, that the existence of the Master Chief Collection is the absolute bane of my fucking existence. Because I've never had a worse time trying to play a video game in my entire life.
Because you had to
Really?
download the video games from the video game?
Yes. And in addition to having to download the video game, it isn't the game that it installs when you install the game from the Steam client. And also, I had to create an account to play the game, and I had to like get an email and like put a verification code into the main menu of Halo, and that is just, there's something just grotesque about that to me.
Yes.
It was an annoying experience that like it's funny to me the assumptions that they've made on behalf of the players that like when you install the Master Chief Collection, it installs Halo Reach and not Halo 1.
Right.
And just think that's funny, like the biases there. And then, yeah, also, like, before you can play the game at all, you have to set up an account because they assume that what you want is multiplayer.
Right. Yeah, like everything that I did in Halo prior to playing or prior to recording this podcast did not need any. I didn't even need an internet connection past downloading the game, like theoretically. But there's so many hoops to jump. I complained about this on Assassin's Creed.
Oh yes, please continue complaining about past complaints.
Yeah.
A nested layer of complaints that will never end.
I was going to bring up Uplay.
Yeah, like Uplay is bad. This was worse because this one didn't just like launch and then do a thing. This one like made me do shit to access a single player campaign. And I had to do that before I could even install the game I intended to play.
Yeah, like, I know Halo was like known for the multiplayer mode, like in Xbox Live and all that. Mm-hmm. They're very tied together. But like it's weird how much this collection felt like it downplayed the single player campaigns. Like is like a thing that you might want to do later. But like what you really want is the sweet online action.
Yeah, get those frags.
Yeah.
You know, get your KD up.
360 no scope.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
I don't like these modern women and the way that they just eat hot chip and lie. I wanted to bring the extra energy that you guys bringing to the table, but just hate and vitriol about people that we don't like. That's what I wanted to do.
This isn't about people. This is about software. You've been gone for a while. You don't know how much about software we talk these days.
True.
The last episode of Pocket was on Adobe Illustrator.
That must have been
we are now
fire.
NOCLIP Software LLC.
God, you guys incorporated without me? I hate corporations.
Well, you're part of it now.
Oh,
You're
good.
now in corporation.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Mercifully. So how about the video game? Once you did play it,
Yeah.
how was that? How does that treat you?
Does anyone have any recollection of what Halo looked like in 2001?
You didn't press the button, did you?
I didn't. Okay, so I played on. I'm now going to extend the previous one. This one's not a complaint as much though. They do have one further complaint about that. I played on PC, and I barely knew what the buttons were to do things in the game. I had to reset the bindings because they're so nonsensical to me. Like the button to switch. You have two weapons in this game.
Yeah.
And in order to switch weapons, the button you press is 1. You press the 1 key.
What, you played on a keyboard?
I played on a keyboard. Why everyone? I'm gonna play on a keyboard if it's on PC. It's not gonna be a thing.
But that is Halo. It's like the thing that made it so good was the fact that they figured out a way that you didn't have to do that. I even made the same mistake because I was like, I just started doing the same as you. I automatically trended toward the way I usually play shooters on PC these days, which is Steam controller with built-in motion controls. And then, during the 30 to 40 minute setup process that is necessary with any game that you play with the Steam controller, when I was midway through that, I was like, oh wait, I'm very stupid. Why am I doing this? I will not understand the thing that made Halo popular if I did this. And thankfully, I couldn't do it anyway because they did a really dumb software thing that prevents you from using the Steam controller correctly, and I was so mad about it.
Yeah, I specifically played with a controller because the game's designed for it, and I figured that keyboard and mouse would make it too easy. And I'd never played the game before, so I wanted the
No, and I think that all
experience.
tracks. I wanted to play the keyboard because I just got this new goddamn keyboard, and I wanted to use it.
It's a cool looking keyboard.
Lay off, man.
It's very red.
I will not lay off.
It makes me feel like you're a gamer who does things serious.
You're a pro elite gamer.
I am a pro league.
It reminds me of the color of the blood in your body and the blood that you spill from your enemies in virtual spaces.
I will say though that when Halo 2 released, which as of the time of this recording was yesterday, it reset all my control bindings, and so I went into the game again and immediately was fucked and had no idea what was happening again.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that was lame.
Yeah. Halo.
Yeah, we were
Halo
talking
Combat
about
Evolved?
Halo.
The video game. So now that we've gotten through the second layer of software-based complaints about Halo.
You basically forced my hand on that one.
Yeah. There's a first level of the video game Halo.
Yes.
You're a cool space marine guy,
Uh-huh.
and you get pulled out of a pod, and you look around, and there's evil aliens, and you gotta shoot them with guns.
Was that a cliche in 2001?
In books, yes. In video games, I don't know. Because Quake was around.
Yeah, Quake existed. All of id Software's games involve Space Marines in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So that is definitely a thing. But I don't know. Because I watched the intro to this game and was like, I have to put this in the context of the time that it was released. But me right now hates this because it feels extremely sort of hokey.
It is very hokey. But it's hokey in a way that, at the very least, I can forgive them for because they didn't over-explain the hokiness or try and lend the hokiness more attention than it was worth. The game is good at taking its sci-fi premise and its factions and trying to, like, keep them mysterious enough that you, at least in the first game, have to kind of assign their meanings onto them, and it keeps them from taking up too much time. Because I did not want to sit through this game and explain, and like know anything about the Covenant, and
Right.
the game didn't tell me anything about the Covenant. And that's exactly what I wanted from it.
It feels very much of its time in that way. Like a lot of games, and sometimes it's because of budget and, you know, plenty of other factors back then, but it doesn't go a lot into the story. And I think that's to its benefit.
That was quite intentional on their part. The like development cycle of Halo 1 is legendary for its craziness.
Yeah, well, Bungie initially was a Mac exclusive game developer.
Yeah, they literally pitched Halo to Steve Jobs at one point.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So, like, the concept of them making a game not just for Microsoft, but like with this new architecture is honestly like pretty surprising, but doesn't take away from how cliche that intro is.
They had a year at the time. I'm going to give them the credit they're due in context, because after they got done working on Myst and they were starting to really build up for all of this stuff was when they got bought out. And during the process of being bought out is when the game shifted from an RTS to a third-person shooter to the game that we now understand today. And all of those things got compressed into like a year to make sure that it could make it in time for the launch of the Xbox.
Right.
And they somehow did that. It's like as if that's a thing that you could have done in 2000. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I want to defend it a little bit because I feel like you had to think about the time it came out, as you said, and it feels like a kind of like shorthand, or like, I don't know how to really describe it. Like the thing that Doom 2016 is like self-aware, like doing in a self-aware fashion at the beginning where the Doom Slayer wakes up out of stasis. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, he gets out of
and
a
then he
pod.
immediately like smashes a demon's skull. You know, it's like this game's kind of doing that sincerely in a time where you could do that sincerely, and that time has passed.
Yeah, and I mean the reason, and I don't actually have that much vitriol toward the plot of Halo, though I will say the plot of Halo did actually get it where it was going in the, like, during the first couple of iterations of the game. But here in Halo 1, it is, like, pretty bare bones, all things considered. Mm-hmm. And I do actually appreciate it. But one of the things that it does, that got talked about when this game came out, is the presentation of the story. And I think that it actually does... It went way above and beyond what you would expect at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there were a lot of cutscenes. The cutscenes all looked pretty good. And the voice acting was largely not abysmal.
No, in fact, I want to lend like enormous credibility long term for this series on just Cortana's voice actor alone. Like I don't know if they re-recorded these things for the anniversary. I assume they didn't, but the clarity in a lot of that her AI speaking voice is very, very good. Like I think it holds up perfectly even to this day. Yeah. And I was impressed by that going back.
I kind of wanted took a more cynical opinion on the
Shocking.
voice acting. I think Master Chief I thought was a silent protagonist, and I thought his voice actor was just awful. I thought he was really bad. Luckily, he didn't talk that much.
Yeah, it's pretty sparse.
And I thought Cortana seemed like them being really smart with their limitations, and that they were like, she's got the most speaking lines, so we'll make her an AI so that if her performance is a little bit wooden, it won't sound bad because she's supposed to sound like a robot. It was kind of how it came off to me.
Yeah.
But I meant that as a compliment. It's like they were smart about like the biggest speaking role will make her a robot so it can kind of hide the quality that like we can afford, in 2001. So like I mean that as a positive thing. It was just interesting to me. That stood out to me as well, her voice specifically.
And none of these things would have been expected from a shooter in 2001 in the first place, right? Like the modern notion of a campaign with where you go is based on defined arcs as outlined in the game was just not really a thing that was common as far as I'm aware. Like we're comparing these things to like Quake, which did not have that kind of progression.
No.
Dooms and all of the various Doom clones, which also did not have that kind of progression, just had levels. And stuff like GoldenEye that like assumed a pre-existing property that you were familiar with.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah, Perfect Dark is the one counterexample that I give to this, because Perfect Dark does have honestly kind of a similar story. It has a lot more espionage in it because it's a spy narrative, but at the same time, like it is still, they introduce like an alien invader, and then you fight the aliens and their prescribed cutscenes and shit.
There are aliens in Perfect Dark?
That's the twist. Spoilers for 1999's Perfect Dark. Yeah. But yeah, it is, and they actually do a similar job, and the voice acting is also not terrible in that. But it's like it's on a different scale. Like Halo is up here, and my hand is up above my head, and then Perfect Dark is like at neck level.
When did Half-Life come out?
98, 99?
98 sounds right.
So that predates this.
True.
As being a narrative-centric shooter.
Half-Life was intentionally what they were trying to lean into here.
Yeah. But that being said, this was uncommon at the time.
Yeah.
And it's
a console game.
It certainly wasn't mainstream.
Right.
Yeah. Mainstream was like what? Call of Duty, another thing where there's a narrative that you are assumed to be pre-existing.
Is Call of Duty that old?
Well, Call of Duty is,
like
but Call of Duty, like this was in the era where Call of Duty was still in competition with Medal of Honor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And it was super not narrative because it was like, it's in World War II. They assume you already know the ending. So they didn't go super deep into that.
No, not one way or the other.
But yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. And like there's been talks of Halo movies that never happened. There was, I think.
I remember that. There was like a push, I don't know exactly how these things work, but the idea was like floated, and there was like a big kind of like audience response that I think almost propelled the Halo movie to get made, but it never happened.
And I think the aesthetics of Halo alone can be enough to create a movie. Certainly not like on its own a good movie, but the Halo itself, especially at the time, I think was enough of a set piece that...
Yeah, I think Halo is a universe you could put a movie in.
Yeah.
As far as video game settings go.
Well, there definitely was at least one animated movie that was made out of Halo.
We all know that none of those count.
Yeah, like the Dead Space movie does not count as a Dead Space movie, for sure.
We need Michael Keaton as Master Halo, the King Chief.
Michael Keaton as Master Chief? If he were like 20 years younger, I think that actually would be a decent choice.
Well, he's just going to be CG'd, you know?
True, like he'd have the armor on the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could work. I like Michael Keaton a lot. I think he could pull off the kind of gruff you need, but I think he's a bit too old.
Who
you get frail when you get old, you know? Like, I don't believe that he could take a beating. All right? No offense to him.
Or other old people.
Then what actor do you want to see the shit kicked out of in a Halo movie?
Hold on. Master Chief. Who plays Cable?
Cable.
Yeah, in Deadpool.
I know you're talking about, but I
because I think he'd be good.
Okay. Yeah, he would be good at being a Chief Master.
All right, so one thing that surprised me about this game, coming to it now, is I thought the environmental like art direction was actually like really great.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's one level, I don't remember which one it was, that like takes place on a beach, and like it looks great. It's just when I think of like
The silent cartographer.
That's
Yes,
correct.
that's
It's
the
the
one.
most famous level, one of the most famous shooter levels in video games, the Silent Cartographer.
Yeah, but like when I think of like last console generation, like PS3, Xbox 360 shooters, I think of like the military shooter became really popular, and I think of like drab military, environments and aesthetics,
Browns and
browns
greens.
and dark greens and whatever. This game surprised me and how like cool the planet looked, and like the alien designs were cool, and there was a good use of like color to differentiate stuff. It's like that all took me by surprise. And the special thing I wanted to point out is the halo being visible in most of the skyboxes is one of my absolute favorite things in the game.
Yeah, my childhood memory of owning an Xbox was looking up in the second level of Halo and seeing the the ring wrap around and being like, that's fucking unbelievable. I gotta play this game, gotta play it a million times. And I did, and yeah, and it was basically all spurred on by how good this game looked visually when I first played it.
I literally think that the indoor segments look better with the old aesthetic style. Like, I would switch to the old style in the Master Chief Collection because the new style was just so busy by comparison.
Yeah, I played it with the HD textures, but like I have seen the game and I just watched the ending because I didn't quite finish it. Don't tell anyone. But I got close. But and I wanted to compare it to Metroid Prime specifically. I think for my money anyway, Metroid Prime looks a bit better, but for that console generation, I think it's one of like the better looking games, and I think that kind of space aesthetic with like the way like the armor looks, I think they have a lot of that kind of like angular stuff on the walls, and like that kind of stuff was easier to model at that time than more organic looking stuff, and like the choices were smart with like the aesthetic of the game.
They iterated on that a lot. As far as the Prime Halo comparison, Metroid Prime definitely, in my mind, looks better, but that's because they were able to cheat on the load screen so much. The games probably have similar numbers of actual polygons that are distributed in any given area that is loaded, but that area in Halo is this like huge, oftentimes open world outdoor section compared to like these incredibly cramped Metroid Prime environments and individual hallways that you have to hit loading screens every like 15 seconds of walking to get from room to room.
I want to hit on that a little bit. Specifically, like the fact that Halo has two modes of play, generally speaking, and it switches between them pretty often, which I think is a good idea, where you have your corridor sections where you walk around in a tiny area and shoot at things that are coming around corners, essentially, and then the giant open areas where things can come at you from like any angle, and there's a lot of traversal, and that's where the vehicles come in. I'm sorry, but I think that Halo's level design, by and large, not individual, they're good moments, but for the most part, the design is kind of cheeks. Like it's
Cheeks?
yeah, it's
Please define
ass.
cheeks.
It's butt cheeks. It's like there are sequences in this game that I feel like, and I mean, this is me looking at it right now. Like I didn't have this thought before this week, but like going from place to place in the level, it's like I prefer those outdoor segments so much because of the aesthetic beauty of them that I would rather do that a million times, even though I felt like I was constantly being shot by things that no one has ever seen before.
This is a good tangent to go down here, 'cause as I largely agree with you for like visuals and aesthetics, the outdoor areas are way cooler, but I think that the AI kind of wigs out in the open areas.
A little bit.
Like I know at the time Halo was like lauded for the AI, or they like pushed like the AI as like a selling point of it.
It was the evolved combat
Yeah.
that they were talking about.
But like it seems like they have this like behavioral AI that like determines like what they'll do to try to make them like react more realistically. And in the outdoor environments, I think that takes over too much and they end up just running around sometimes. Like especially like the bigger dudes, like you have like the fodder smaller dudes.
So you have grunts,
and then the
jackals,
blue guys.
and elites.
Yeah.
Elites are the blue guys.
Okay, yeah, the blue guys, like, there was this one, it's in, like, the second level, the one where you had to go to the different, like, take the warthog to the different places.
Oh, you mean the big blue guys, now that I'm thinking about it. Those are hunters.
Okay, hunters, that's the ones. But there's one of those areas, and there was, like, a bunch of the little grunt enemies and, like, two of the blue guys. And, like, I swear, like, the blue guy was just, like, running away from me. Like, I'm running around this structure, like, trying to find him, and then when I do, he's just, like, got his gun up, and he's, like, running left and right, like, just not doing anything. And it's, like... And usually I don't think about AI when I play games, but it's just something that kind of stood out to me in the outdoor segments, and then I couldn't unsee it.
Yeah.
Like, it behaves much better, to bring it back around to the greater indoor versus outdoor thing. It behaved way better in the corridor segments, but those are a lot more boring aesthetically. Like, there's like a trade-off. Like, part of it works better in the outdoors, part of it works better in the indoors, and it doesn't quite, ever come into its own, I think, in this first game. I'm assuming it's better in the sequels.
I agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, Halo 2's campaign is better than Halo 1's, and I think Halo 3's is about on par. ODST is, I think, a fucking glorious standout that nobody ever plays, but
I know. Yeah, ODST is like the standard bearer for people like us who are like, this is what we want out of shooters. It's a meme at this point how much people who like love to talk about games and the way we would talk about games suck on ODST and how great it is. But onto the indoor-outdoor points, super important context point that I think should be kept in mind is that this game essentially invented what we understand as the outdoor segment. There was not like a history of shooters that had huge open world environments where you switch between vehicles and conventional traversal for these kind of problems until Halo 1. And so I want to give them credit for that, since the assumptions that they were working from, historically speaking, were a bunch of systems designed for the hallway segments.
Yeah. And I don't think you're implying this, but I just want to point out to the listeners, I'm not dunking on this game at all.
Right.
It's just like my perspective is I just played it for the first time, and it's interesting to look back on, is all I'm saying.
yeah.
I hate it when you say things.
I hate you too, Jamie.
Yeah.
No, the AI and the way that the behavioral is a good way of putting it, because it's like they're supposed to react to things.
Yeah, like the quintessential example is when you're shooting at the hunter enemies. They do that duck move.
Yeah, marginal correction there. I thought you were talking about hunters. These are elites.
Okay, the big blue ones.
Right, well, there's bigger, bluer ones with
Okay.
spikes on their back, and they melee
Those
attack
guys
you.
aren't blue.
They're barely blue.
I thought they were white. I thought they were like black and white.
Okay, they could
They
be
like
black.
shoot the green.
Yeah,
those guys are
fuel
black and
rods.
white.
Those are blue to me.
what
in
do
the
we-
HD version, they looked black and white.
Did we
to
just
me.
find another fucking dress thing on the Halo 1?
Oh shit! Are hunters black and white,
blue.
or are they blue and gold? Who knows?
Anyway,
Comment below.
So I don't mean those guys.
Yeah.
I meant just the blue ones, like the sky blue.
Yeah, there are multiple colors of the elites, but yeah, the ones.
Well, yeah,
that
then
you
there's like
see
the
most
red
often,
ones
yeah.
or brown or whatever.
Yeah,
Cool quad mouths.
Yeah. I meant like in like the second level, the blue guys.
How many other ways can we think of to describe elites without calling them elites?
yeah.
Long heads,
The long heads.
small guns.
So when I shoot at the long heads and they duck out of the way.
Uh-huh.
Now, God, that sounds very racist.
It is racist against the
It
Covenant.
is definitely
Yeah, the
racist, yeah.
But no, like they will dodge out of the way. But if you throw grenades at them, they'll like jump out of the way and shit.
Yeah.
And if you kill the elites, then the grunts like panic and run around.
That's so cute.
And I feel like that is what the game originally was sold on when it comes to, or as far as like the AI plugging goes. People talk about like that the enemies behave realistically. They react to the things that you do. And that actually was really unique at the time. And they still kind of duck me at times, you know? Like when you're playing this game, despite having played it multiple times before, there were definitely periods where I was just like, I cannot fucking hit this thing. Like, he is moving in such a way that I am finding it very difficult to actually land shots.
It didn't feel like it was actually reacting to you, though. It feels like the system in place is like you're shooting at them, so it waits like so much time, and then it has them do the duck, and then it waits so much time, and then it has them do it again. Like it feels very
chunky.
It feels very like what it is, like determined by a computer, like by an algorithm,
right?
That tells it to do it at like an equal frequency if you are shooting at them.
That's what I mean when I say chunky.
Yes.
Okay,
or chunky to the layman.
Thank you.
To the J-man?
Yes.
Don't you dare. I have enough fucking names in my life.
To the JJ.
God.
But yeah, and then I don't want to have this be a Halo retrospective, right? Like, that's not what I'm here to do. Because I could easily continue on this tangent and say, like, these indoor-outdoor sections were very cool in Halo 1, but they really did it better in the sequels. And, like, the colors were more vibrant and the enemies were more varied, etc., etc. Halo 2 rocks.
And they made Cortana, like, way hotter.
Yeah, right?
So much hotter, guys.
That's what we really needed.
Yeah, we did.
That's what I was looking for, yeah. Not her too delicately sculpted ass cheeks in this game.
God.
But it is like, going back to this makes it feels a lot more tedious than it was when I played it the first time.
Agreed.
Like, Assault on the Control Center is, in my opinion, the most egregious example of this, but it has a tendency to repeat segments, and that mission is just repeated segments 11 times in a row.
Yeah.
You go across an identical bridge into an identical circular room, from there into another identical circular room, across another bridge into another identical circular room. You do it like a million times.
I mean, that's the way all the indoor levels are.
Yeah.
They're like, they have these chunks of level that they then copy, flip, and then paste, and you go through like an identical area, but it's backwards.
Right.
And that's kind of just the way games development was at the time, especially games that looked as good as this at the time. You had to pick your battles, right? If they want it to look this good, then they don't have as much money and time to develop new assets, so they have to make do with what they have.
And that's often why they were trying to lean on these behavioral AI engines, so that they could mix and match these discrete different enemies together in ways that created challenges that were new and unique in very, very rote and repeated environments. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, we're talking about systems not totally under the control of the intent of the developers here, so oftentimes you get big elites who run away from you in circles for hours. But it works well enough that I feel like the actual gameplay loops were pretty smooth most of the time for me, even playing on some of the harder modes that are naturally going to create more hitches and stops within those particular loops.
Yeah, that was one thing I was curious about, is if the AI behaved smarter on higher difficulties. I assume it does to some degree.
I didn't play it through multiple times.
Yeah, so I was just playing it on normal. So.
Yeah, I don't think that we had the comparison. I recently played Doom Eternal. In fact, I finished Doom Eternal like within 12 hours of when I first started playing Halo, and that was a jarring fucking transition, and I don't recommend it. But when I played Doom Eternal, I played it on, we're going to call it hard because I'm not ordering at a novelty restaurant, and I'm going to say ultra violence like it's a real difficulty setting. And so I came off of that and was like, I don't know, I found that pretty tough but manageable. I can probably play Halo, which I've played multiple times already, on heroic, which is the next to hardest, also hard. And I don't think that was the right decision, because I haven't played a Halo game in probably 8 years, since 4 at the earliest. protagonist.
Played Halo 4.
I did play Halo 4. I liked Halo 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
Fight me.
In the comment section.
Yes. Like, comment, subscribe.
We will harass you real good.
Yeah.
Get on down.
But for my understanding, yes, the AI does behave differently on the higher difficulty levels, but a lot of what it does is sort of like cheap to some extent. Like, did you, also playing on heroic, have an instance where you took a plasma grenade and attached it to another enemy from a distance of greater than 0 feet?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't.
That's because you got to lead them shots, Chad. You got to get good.
No, what you do is you either hit them when they aren't looking at you, or they do the electric slide and will never once connect with the grenade.
I will admit that I did only do it when they weren't looking at me.
I felt like such a badass, and I think they designed it so that you will do what I did, but it was just one of those things where it clicked, the design of it, where you come out, it's in, I think, the level before the library, like when you make your way to it.
Guilty Spark, yeah.
Yeah, that one. You come out of like a cave or something into like a snowy bridge thing, and there are those, what are they called, like the
Halos.
close range jets that they fly around in and shoot you.
Oh, the ones that hover but don't fly?
Not the ghosts.
Okay, those are ghosts.
Banshees.
Banshees fly,
Okay,
yeah.
those. And I just like threw a grenade at one of them, and it stuck onto it and blew it up as it flew away, and I was like, yes.
Got
like
him.
that's exactly what they wanted, and it felt great to do.
Yeah. That's honestly, and we'll talk about vehicles in a minute, but they really succeeded, at least in my opinion, at setting the bar for like how the vehicles interact with ground-based combat, to the point where in the multiplayer of Halo 1, there were vehicles that you could drive and it didn't fuck shit up. And if you played any other like FPS that attempted to include vehicles, they usually fuck shit up. Like Battlefield didn't even get it right until like the late 2000s. Like they could get vehicles, and they're like a war sim game. But yeah, that kind of moment with the Banshees is really great. I love the fact that you can shoot dudes out of the driver's seat of ghosts and warthogs.
And it makes a difference between just blowing it up and killing the driver.
Because you can then hijack it and shit. It's just really well done in that. And Guilty Spark is arguably my favorite level in this game, all due respect to the classics. But Guilty Spark is great, and then it's followed by the library, which makes me dread life. So,
Dude, I had heard rumblings in my childhood about the library level. I loved it. Everything in my life told me that to expect that to be like a horrible hellscape, and apparently I just love horrible hellscapes.
I liked it too, but I felt like it was maybe 20% too long.
Well, yeah.
Especially with the copy-pasted layout.
yeah. What I told Andy about the library, and I think is the accurate way of looking at it, you may be a crazy person, is that the library, first time through the library is great because it's the level that has the best narrative beat in the whole game.
The introduction of the flood is really good.
Yeah. Which we haven't. This is the twist in the podcast where we talk about the flood for the first time. Also, the twist in the game where you get to meet the flood, which I think are great. The actual design of it is like spooky and labyrinthine. Is that how you pronounce that? Labyrinthine?
Yeah, labyrinthine. Yeah. It doesn't fucking matter.
It is maze-like, which honestly harks back to older shooters that were like almost entirely maze-based games.
It felt a little Doom-esque.
Maze Sims.
Maze Sims. So like I love the library the first time, but it's the level that I feel like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like is a universal thing where it's like when you go to replay a game, there's that one part that you dread playing again. The library is that for me because I know it's going to take a long time, and I already know the twist, so like half of the appeal is gone.
Fair.
And the initial flood encounters, pretty rough, all things considered.
Absolutely.
As in hard or as in bad?
Hard is what I was
Okay.
going for. Because
Yeah.
the little swarm guys, before you know how to deal with them,
Yeah, it's a difference in kind.
yeah.
That,
For sure.
yeah, it catches you off guard, yeah.
I forget, like, what even got us to here? We should continue talking about that.
We are as the river. We flow where the video games take us.
Someone brought up grenades, and then I said throwing the grenade at the Banshees, and you talked about vehicles, and somehow we got to talking about the flood. I don't remember.
Well, we were talking about level design, like, kind of by and large, but I think this is probably a good place to...
Stop, because I really am itching to talk about the other differences in kind in the more granular elements of design and weapon selection, and that sounds like second half material.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
All right. Then
Yeah.
say it.
After the break.
Oh, there it is. I missed that juice. Oh,
JJ hasn't heard that in so many months.
It's been many, many moons.
God, give me your surgical tubing.
Guns. Halo is a first-person shooter, and as of right now, we've talked about map design, we've talked about enemy AI, and we've talked about aesthetics. So let's get into what Halo means to culture at large, which is shooting things with guns with mass appeal. So I'm a Halo fan generally. I would count myself among their numbers. I'm not much of a multiplayer person, but of the Halo games I've played, the thing that shocked me the most going back to Halo 1, the battle rifle doesn't exist in this game. It's just the assault rifle. It's like the only bullet shooting gun that you have that isn't the pistol.
I am tired of the battle rifle's monopoly over all gun-based Halo discussion.
Battle rifle feels good to use.
It does.
The assault rifle feels like nothing. It feels like spraying a garden hose at your opponents.
That's what it is. Yes, it is. It's a garden hose of little bitty lead chunks. Do some hurting and stuff.
How did you feel about as somebody who doesn't have other Halos to compare it to? What guns did you like to use? Like, the 2-gun limit means that you had to sort of like pick.
Yeah.
And did you feel like there was perhaps missing like a mid to long range rifle that had a 3-shot burst fire
And a scope.
and a scope?
I think my favorite gun was the plasma rifle. The one that
Nice.
the what are they called? The elites?
Yeah, the elites.
The
God, I
elites
love you
use.
every day. What a good pick
Yeah,
for favorite weapon.
The plasma rifle was probably my favorite, and I usually had one of those in the green gun, the smaller,
Oh, the plasma pistol.
the plasma pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two were the ones I used the most. The green ones were just like the most plentiful gun,
Yeah.
so that's why it was the second one. The assault rifle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was definitely something I recognized. Like, the gun with the ammo count on the little screen was something like I knew from Halo.
Mm-hmm.
I found that I ran out of ammo on that so fast that I almost never ever used it. Because I would just like use it when they gave it to me at the beginning and then just be done with it. And like, okay, whatever. And I actually kind of liked that, like scavenging for guns.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yep.
Later in the game, I liked the shotgun a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah.
That was good for the little flood enemies. Just blast them with the shotgun.
So anyway, I started blasting.
So no, for
You get that
for
reference
me,
out of the way?
The kids love you.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like there was anything missing. I actually kind of disliked the sniper rifle. The one mission they make you use that I played. So I don't know. Yeah, I liked the plasma rifle a lot and was not hurting for any other guns.
I want to jump in and say we were not talking about favorite weapons when I brought up the battle rifle.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel like that option was missing, but the sniper rifle does fill that role to some extent. Like, the sniper in this game is pretty satisfying to use in a way that the assault rifle is not.
It felt tacked on to me, though. Like, it didn't feel like it was factored into the design of the game at all.
I agree with that entirely.
Yeah.
It's like that one mission was kind of designed around it. I don't even think you really needed it.
The game wants you to be active so much.
It's for the multiplayer, I guess.
Yeah. so you can be cool and shoot people in the head and be like, I
360
shot you.
no scopes.
I shot you in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suck my dick.
But no, my favorite weapon in the game, and in fact, you're really loving
Is it the
your own jokes.
I'm picturing in my head now the like quaint 18th century European Halo player that has the mind of a modern Halo player, but the body and the cultural context of someone with just a lot of plain English speak.
Like a Regency era Halo player.
Yeah.
Are you gonna say the grenade?
No, though that's a good pull because I do love the plasma grenade. I think the plasma grenade invented a whole fucking thing in shooters, like the sticky grenade that just didn't exist before and now is in everything. And I respect it for that. But the Needler is in my top 10 FPS weapons of all time.
The little crystal gun?
Yeah.
I fucking hated that gun.
You should if you're playing Halo 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a terrible gun, but a fantastic idea for a gun.
Yeah.
And they're like homing
Yes.
things. Yeah.
Semi-homing.
The design, amazing.
Yeah.
The look of the gun with all the crystals sticking out.
Looks super
A+.
good. And I love the mechanic of and I don't know if this is ever explained in game, but I'm familiar from online context as the super combine explosion, where if you land 8 shots of the Needler, they just explode and kill the person that you've attacked. And that is, like, it respects aim because they home, but it's like a real light homing, so you do still have to be, like, paying attention.
In the neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of enemies can kind of like get out of the way if they're aware of you shooting at them. It's just a cool weapon. I love like the little pink needles flying through the air is like a cool visual.
And when it reloads, it's cool.
Yeah, and they like pulls out the new needles and shit. So that's my favorite weapon, and I did like to keep one on me a lot of the time in Halo 1 just for the sake of it. But you're right, it's not super good, but that's probably to its benefit. Like the fact that it isn't broken is a good thing for game balance purposes. Shotgun is probably the most satisfying weapon in the game to use because the assault rifle once again is like vigorously shaking a salt shaker nearby someone.
It's an ammo based weapon, and none of the other except the shotgun are
Handgun.
Who fucking uses that?
Dude, the handgun in this
JJ.
game is
I use
literally
it also.
it's literally legendary for being too good.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like
You can use, because it has a scope on it, you can 2x zoom, and you can use it like a
See,
semi-bad sniper rifle that isn't terrible up close.
I really don't like scope weapons in first-person shooters. I don't like the change in perspective.
Yeah.
Personally, and I don't like things that limit my field of vision either. But so I never used that feature. But I don't know. I always forgot that I had it. It has that syndrome. Like, there are just features in games that always feel like they're that one more thing that I just forget about, and the pistol was that for me.
Well, I feel like the pistol is that for most people in most shooters, right? Like, most of them are not super satisfying to use, don't do enough that they're, like, worth it.
But the plasma pistol.
But the plasma pistol, because the smart thing to do in this game is to always have a plasma pistol on you because they disable shields. So you can, like, charge up a shot, hit a shield, and then put that shit in your pocket where it belongs and pull out a real man's gun.
A big, thick, girthy shotgun.
Yeah.
Yes.
To get things done.
Yeah, to finish off the person that you weaken.
Yeah, once all their defenses are down.
And I feel like that is the core gameplay loop. That'd be very masculine gameplay loop.
Also, I love the melee attack.
Melee, yeah. Master Chief is apparently like the strongest person in the entire world.
Well, that's what the game wants you to think, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, because your melee is crazy strong, like, compared to what bullets do. Like, if you shot me with an assault rifle, even the shitty assault rifle that exists in Halo 1, that is more akin to a light rain than it is to a gun, one shot would probably do a good job at stopping me from doing whatever it was I was doing.
See, we're getting too theoretical here, because I have yet to be shot by guns. I don't really know what happens to my body when lead enters it in a way that is not intended.
But consider that happening one time from an assault rifle, you'd probably say, that sucks. I never want to do that again.
I know how I'd feel about it, like, emotionally, but that's not really in question.
And you can shoot somebody 40 times in Halo before they die, but you fucking elbow them in the face 2 times and they're gone.
Maybe it's like a cinder block thing, where there is, for the Covenant, an extreme diversity between how much damage they can take from a piercing perspective compared to a blunt force trauma
Resistant to piercing damage, weak to blunt damage.
I like the lore speculation. But I think the mechanical reason is just the balance. They're easier to dodge for the AI.
Shut up, Andy. Now, the Covenant have their flesh made out of Jello. So that things slide through them real fast.
Their organs are just fluid sacs. They're like jellyfish.
Yeah. Well, I think the actual, like, realistic argument for this is that they have shields, and the bullets bounce off the shields or, like, weaken the shields or whatever.
Yeah, whenever
and
you
punch
shoot
through
at
them.
them,
It's like Dune.
you shoot at them enough times, and they have like that puff of blue, like
Right.
because you destroyed their shield.
Yeah.
So that is actually the answer.
Yeah.
Correct.
But the melee attack is satisfying. You are correct.
Yes, like,
That's where I'm getting at with this.
Like the most fun thing, or well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I really liked just punching the shield guys.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
busting
Jackals.
the shield
Yeah.
and then punching them.
I love punching gangly things.
It just, I just, as somebody who doesn't find pointing and shooting at a guy as satisfying as the average man, I appreciate the melee option.
Yeah. Halo 2 introduces the fucking the beam sword.
Introduces them as a thing that you can use.
Yeah, because they are in this game.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck my...
And they kill you in like one hit.
Yeah. I'm glad that that is also the case on normal, because I replayed the opening 3 minutes of Truth and Reconciliation like 50 times because I could not get through that first room where they just put one of those guys in and then they just send waves in after that. And yeah, the beam sword is like, it's like an iconic thing in Halo. It's weird to me to remember that you couldn't use it in the first game.
Agreed. What a great aesthetic design for a weapon.
Yep.
Beautiful little thing.
Because like it's especially like as somebody who's thought about this, because I was like a nerd who liked to draw, is like the idea of like a energy weapon in your mind not just immediately going to the lightsaber. It's like it's cool that they were able to make such a unique design for an energy sword.
It's kind of the exact inverse of the
Yeah.
lightsaber, where there is energy.
There's like a hole in the middle.
Yeah, in all places except where the lightsaber beam would be.
It is a great design.
Well, the way that like you grip it as well is like it's horizontal. It's literally the opposite of a lightsaber.
It's because it is wrist destroying in reality. It would annihilate one's most vulnerable.
Well, what's great about it, like from a design perspective, is also like because it isn't used like a sword either.
It's more like a claw weapon or something.
Yeah, it's like
Like a brass knuckle of energy.
an energy knuckle, and it's like an extension of your melee. Like,
Yeah,
it just
it's like
makes-
it's on the end of your punch.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it is cool in that way, and it emphasizes sort of like the importance that the game places on Master Chief just punching somebody in the face.
Yeah, I mean he is kind of like Doom Guy light,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, he's Doom Guy without the murder and Satanism.
Yeah.
Well, Doom Guy is just Master Chief plus Duke Nukem, right? Like that's sort of where
Hold
it
on.
lands.
Doom Guy is Master Chief if he was like created in a lab specifically only to kill things.
Yeah,
And Master Chief is like the real world version.
Master Chief knows how to love.
Yeah.
exactly.
Master Chief is like a real guy.
I had in my mind, I was waiting for the opportunity to say that I can't picture Doom Guy enjoying sex in the way that you
Right.
can with Duke Nukem or Master Chief.
True, and it's almost like like Doom Guy.
I want to
yeah.
I want to ship Duke Nukem and Master Chief as a couple.
I could see that. Yeah.
You know?
10 seconds is what that would require to find that already
Oh
existing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking- we lost our desktop wallpaper gag from like 2 years ago.
Should have put that up there.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've now gone on to the general libido of
Master Chief.
of green Space Marine characters, which makes me feel like we've gotten slightly off the point.
From how cool the weapons are and
The
how
point
diverse
of
and-
the energy sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's actually, so I don't expect a whole lot in terms of like weapon variety. What is here is cool, and well, honestly, what kind of pulls it all together for me, and I don't know if you guys agree, is the limited but interesting variety of enemies.
Yes.
I half agree with that.
I feel like you would be the one to not agree. So, like, when we were talking earlier about sort of map design and the fact that, like, they do copy and paste a lot of things, the fact that the enemies have different behavior is what keeps it playable, like, in all of that. And I think that the three main enemy types, your grunts, jackals, and elites, are all pretty good, all things considered. I like them visually, I like the way that they play, and I like the way their AI works. I have an issue with hunters, but we can get into that in a second. What is your beef, Andy?
I don't really have a beef. It's just there's only those main three, and it feels like they keep it to only mostly those three for too long.
Yeah.
It got to the point where it felt repetitive. Like, as far as like pacing of the game goes, like I really liked the moment when like the flood was introduced as like the new threat. It feels like that should have been earlier based on like how little enemy variety there was up till then.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's like a nitpicky thing. It was starting to wear thin for me by the time the flood showed up, and then it was like a huge breath of fresh air.
I think that they're, given if they would have had the resources to do so, the existence of another bullet weak Covenant enemy that isn't the grunts would have been good, like an actual threat that is weak to bullets comparatively, because the core loop of the flood fills that role later in the game.
Something that's like really fast. And can, like charge at you and stuff.
Yeah.
But then was relatively easy to kill.
The game does the design of the game allows you to have these interesting tensions between how good you want to be at various ranges and, in addition to that, against energy or physical based threats. And that's really cool and interesting. And from a high tier perspective, they clearly wanted the flood to be bullet weak and the elites to be disproportionately energy weak. But because it needs all of those forces working in tandem to really get into its best stride, those moments when you're leading up and the flood isn't quite there yet kind of shifts the balance off enough that it keeps it from being as interesting as it could have been.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the difference between having like a bullet and gun and an energy gun is emphasized like a little bit too strongly, especially in the higher difficulties, because it is borderline impossible to remove an elite with an assault rifle in a situation where there's more than just him there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think because of that, it makes you rely a lot on the energy weapons. And then when they introduce the flood later in the game, you've like scrambled what you place importance on. I personally never leave home without an assault rifle in Halo 1. Mostly because like I feel like the bullets last a long time if you're only using them on grunts. But then it's just sort of a mess to try and like make sure that you always have something available to kill elites, and they ended up posing kind of a problem for me in my playthrough, and I think it interrupted flow in a way that I don't really like.
I agree. Since I also played on the same higher difficulty as you, my gun selection loadout was consistently always shotgun plus plasma rifle ideally, but those were so comparatively rare that I often had to just pick other bullshit, like the sniper rifle or just grenade launchers, which were my
fucking needler.
Never. I looked at the needle, like all people who play Halo 1. I looked at the needle and was like, "Oh, this is awesome." I died, and then you throw it on the ground, and then pick up a new weapon and do a different thing. But yeah, the grenade launcher is a good way to deal with the elites.
I mean, it's a way to deal with the elites.
Having played on normal, I had no idea there were different enemy weaknesses.
That's fair.
Yeah.
No,
I was pretty much always using a plasma weapon.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I played this game on, I believe, all difficulties. I have beaten it on Legendary in my youth, playing in multiplayer, because in case you're unaware, the way that multiplayer works is if somebody dies, the other person just respawns. So you never die completely unless both of them die. So it's real easy to beat the game on Legendary. This was, I think I've played solo Heroic before, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, below that, it is definitely less important what your weapon choice is.
While we're talking about cred, how many skulls did you find?
0.
I think 4.
No, you found the terminals.
Oh yeah, I found maybe 2.
Interesting.
Skulls.
Oh wow, good job.
One on the beach level I can remember because it felt like a really obvious path up a little cliff thing.
Yeah, I wasn't searching for them for what it's worth, and if I were to get any of them, it would have just been because I remembered, because I did get all of the skulls when I played this originally, because I was a child.
Oh, good skulls, yeah.
What do they do?
Most of them, correct me if I'm wrong here, hurt you severely, and one of them makes it when you shoot grunts in the head. It plays a sound clip of children going, "Yay!" and confetti shoots out.
Yeah, it's a video game. Yeah, skulls.
Grunt Birthday Party is amazing. But then the other ones are like, your shield doesn't recharge unless you get a melee kill. You don't have a shield, I think, is one of them. And like, if you die, you just go back to the beginning of the level instead of at the checkpoint.
You know, that's a mechanical thing of enormous cataclysmic importance that is interesting to hear your takes on. This is the game that started shield recharging as a thing and auto-regenerating health and incapacity. Notably, the game doesn't have completely auto-regenerating health. That wouldn't happen until some of the later Call of Duties, but the game has a discrete distinction between a health bar that comes back if you pause and a health bar that you have to find regenerating health profiles for.
I liked this a lot better than your standard regenerating health. Like in Uncharted or whatever Call of Duty, but
and he's like, the smaller Andy in his brain is going through a card catalog looking for games with guns.
But like, I've come down pretty hard on the side of I prefer like healing resource, like managing a healing resource more than like regenerating health or like health packs. Like, it's like compared to it to like an RPG or something where you have potions. I like that sort of thing better.
So you like a healing resource that is meta to individual encounters. So you wouldn't prefer this game to just have a bigger conventional health bar where you pick up packs. You'd prefer that you had like an item pouch with things that heal you.
If you just got 5 health packs and that's all you had for the level.
Why do you prefer that, do you think?
I think because if you're designing a combat-centric game, right, health is an obvious concern, right, thing you had to design around, you had to think about. And I think it's just, you can either, because I think any other approach, you have to anticipate how players are going to play it, right? Like when they're going to need the health. And I think if you give them a healing resource and you're just like, it establishes like a clearer like expectation for the level. Like, you have this much health to get through this, and here it is. I think that's just so much simpler, and in motion it just works a lot smoother than being stuck without a health pack or having to duck behind cover. Like, you just have the resource when you need it, and you know if you run out of it, you fucked up, and then you die quicker, and then you just get to start over. Like, I think it just works smoother with that kind of resource management, and I've just come down really hard on the side of that's just pretty much always better.
Am I wrong, or did Halo 2 remove the health bar completely?
God, I cannot for the life of me remember.
I think it did.
I think it did too.
After your shield goes down, you just have like 3 shots and then you're dead from anything, pretty much.
Something like that.
Yeah, like it is. Yeah. They remove the health bar completely, and I almost prefer that.
But yeah, I thought this system was challenging for me anyway. Like I did die, like it isn't like regenning health where you can kind of manipulate that to just never get killed unless you get caught
ambushed.
Out. Caught out by something. But like I thought this system was pretty solid given like other games that I've played.
I hate it.
Why?
I don't.
Also, which half of it do you hate? Do you hate how Halo did it, or do you hate all regen health systems?
I don't hate all regen health systems. It's a perspective problem for me. I think that Halo is a game that uses the non-cover based shooter mechanics and forces you into cover occasionally, and I don't like that. Like my preferred type of shooters, and this is not a secret, are the arcadey type shooters, your Dooms and your like Serious Sams and shit like that, where you avoiding damage involves you knowing where projectiles are coming from and getting out of the way of them. And Halo has that to it, but it also has a lot more and more intelligent enemies that are less predictable. So what it would do is force me to crouch behind a rock for a minute and let my shield regen, and I just don't like doing that. Like I don't like the downtime that enforces. But I don't think the game necessarily is even made for it. Like I don't see this game being better because you can hide behind a rock. Like I think Master Chief, as the narrative like sort of plays him up, should be the type of person who would be able to kill an enemy and like rip its heart out and eat it for the health in the way that traditional health pickups sort of function.
And that's that kind of pickup is in some ways traditional and in other ways not. And that's why I wanted to get back to your comparison, Andy, with it, like full managed health and often item-based resource systems. Do you still prefer that to something like an intentionally designed incentive system like Doom 2016, where you have to perform the actions the devs intended to be healed?
I think that works really well for Doom. Like it incentivizes you to play the game the way that it's meant to be played. So I think that works in that scenario. It's hard to imagine what that game would be like if you had a healing resource.
Yeah.
So that seems like a more unique case.
I think that's true. I think that Doom's mechanic, while I love it, works in games that are very frantic like Doom is. And like what I think of as like the perfect healing concept executed is probably Hollow Knight, and Hollow Knight's healing doesn't work in a lot of other games because you need another meaningful resource to actually dump the importance into, so that you and I don't think that Halo could, like Halo is not gonna have like a hold B to heal type mechanic. Like it just doesn't work that way.
It's kind of like what is it, The Last of Us, where you have to actually like
choose between health packs and Molotovs.
Actually, like bandaging yourself up takes time,
right?
When you do it, and you had to put resources into it. It's kind of similar.
Yeah, and I don't think that Halo could. Halo's the kind of game where you pick up a gun and it says you picked up 600 rounds for your gun. Yeah. It's not the kind of thing where you manage resources.
I kind of agree with what Chad's implying. It's like Halo kind of sits at this middle ground between more realistic shooters and more arcadey ones. But I feel, in my mind, it's a little bit more towards the Doom side, and I feel like a more health pack or like healing resource that like incentivizes action on your part makes more sense in Halo, or would make more sense in Halo.
Historically speaking, given that this game was coming from like a very Half-Life focused perspective, a game in which you had distinct numbered meters and like this is your armor number, and the places where you healed weren't. in a roundabout way, you can say that they are incentivized because, like, you have to beat this room to get to the next place where you can heal. But in function, it's just similar to Andy's idea where you have this much of a number and you have to get through this. I think the shift from full numbered healing to the overshield as it exists in Halo 1 was a good idea in context at the time. I am very, very heavily towards things, not specifically like Doom's example, where you kill a thing and get health back,
Right.
but systems where, as close as you possibly can, you link doing the incentivized activity towards just matching incentives. As much as you possibly can, always match incentives. And I think Doom did a great job of that.
I think it's like the quintessential example of that.
Yeah, from this point on, anyway.
Yeah.
I really want to have a conversation outside of the podcast with you about Doom Eternal and how they handled it, because it is fascinating to me.
I haven't played it, so I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, but in Halo, the recognition that in the kind of shooter that they were designing, and the kind of shooters like Half-Life, where you don't have big physical things moving through the air, where there are actual guns that can hit you, and that you reach a point where even if you're playing the game in a way that the developers think is valid, you are inevitably going to get hit and reduce that number.
Right.
Creating a distinction between a threshold of small damage that it is fine for you to take, and a different threshold of unacceptable damage that you are permanently punished for through the duration of the level, I thought was a good and useful distinction.
Yeah.
It's interesting in context. This is something that I wish I would have researched more, to understand why they eventually thought that full distinction was unnecessary. Because I did reach points in hard mode, especially in some of the flood levels, where I quick saved at a super low health level, but had full amounts of shields, and that made things way more difficult and way more tense, and created a whole lot of gameplay loops that I can see them identifying as undesirable.
That is, I think, the key thing here is that the health packs, like the actual way that you heal physical health, are so rare that I spent 99% of this game at 1 or 2 pips of health. Like, I would lose my shield, I'd lose most of my health, then I would win the encounter, and then I was just stuck at that for the rest of the level, because you would only find 1 or 2 health packs through the whole thing.
Yeah, that was my experience in like the first half of the game as well. Like, I was always at like 3.
The first half of the game is a really good distinction there, because the Flood are way more likely to just murder you outright than they are to deal some damage. Like, most of the time, a bad situation with the Flood kills you and starts you back over, so you're less likely to be in that scenario.
True. But yeah, I do think the division that they created was interesting, and I do think that in context, the later move that we, to be clear, haven't even confirmed is true, of eventually moving to a full shield system and just having a set amount of damage over that shield that is unacceptable to take, that says things that are interesting about the design and the way that players are expected to behave with things. And I like that we are highly disagreeing here. I like that there is like diversity under people's normative expectations of health systems.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of take Chad's side a little bit, like, there were times when a firefight would go bad, and
I'm sorry, go on.
And you would lose your shields and you'd be on low health, and like, it does feel like you kind of just have to stop everything and go crouch down behind a rock, and that happens infrequently enough that it feels out of place. Like, it doesn't really feel like that's what the game wants you to be doing. So I do feel like there's kinks there in the system. Like, I still think this system was a lot more enjoyable than just like auto regen health, though. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked this to death because it's like a big piece of like shooter history, is like the way that shooters have over time treated health, because regenning health was like a big thing, and then it became kind of not in vogue, and now people make fun of it
because of hit scan weapons.
Yeah, and a lot of it makes sense in their design reasons for all of it, and I think that Halo actually makes a lot of sense the way that it is. The particular thing I want to call out is that the game has a distinction between, you're mostly being shot with energy weapons, but the plasma pistol specifically can neutralize your shields instantly, and I think that is an interesting enough reason, like if there was all else considered, you just had a health bar and health pickups in the game, like it was a traditional first-person shooter, and somebody said, what about a gun that, given a significant charge time and like a scenario in which you're actually struck by the projectile, it puts you on like instant panic mode. I would be like, put a shield in this game for those moments, because I think that is such a good mechanic that I just really enjoy the tension that it creates. So I have nothing really against Halo's system. I just don't like hiding behind rocks. Like, what are you going to do? And to confirm, Halo 2 does remove the health bar from the HUD. However, you do have health that regenerates with your shields. But it's just like minimal, so it's kind of hidden. But don't worry, guys. Canonically, this is explained because there is Biofoam in the...
Oh, it's regenerating biofoam.
It's Biofoam, so don't even worry about it.
Is that what you have instead of muscles? Is that why you're so strong? Because you got this rapidly expanding foam? Launches your body.
You know, muscles, biofoam.
Biofoam, it's kind of the
that's
same.
why you're so floaty when you're jumping.
It's because you're made of foam.
Yeah, it's because you got all that air in your body.
Move over, rocket boots. Biofoam is here.
God.
Can we talk about how shitty and terrible the Warthog's controls are?
No, fuck you.
Yeah,
I love
because
it.
we both like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
We are in the same... This conversation we are about to have is the Shadow of the Colossus horse conversation a second time.
I don't think so.
It's not quite the same.
Fine.
Everyone disagrees with everyone, is what we're landing on here.
Because the Warthog, it felt like trying to write left-handed.
Yes.
Like it feels like you're almost like steering the car with the back wheels or something. Like it something about it feels off the way it controls
If
to
by
me.
off you mean hilarious all the time.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to deny that. Like it just why doesn't it just control like a regular vehicle? Like the Ghosts control normally.
Because then
Why does the Warthog not?
would be funny.
Wait. The Ghosts do not control differently than the Warthog.
Yes, they
Yeah,
do.
they do.
How?
They're slidey. They're like one. Okay,
Oh, because the Ghost can move laterally,
Yeah.
and the Warthog is on tires.
correct. And with the Warthog, the Ghost feels like you're controlling one object with one center of mass that you're moving around like an air hockey puck on top of the ground, and the Warthog feels like you're controlling an object that has two centers of mass that is attached together, and the back one you have no control over no matter what you do.
And it swings around wildly.
It's just flipping around like two halves, left brain and right brain.
Yeah, steering the Ghost feels like steering a vehicle in a video game, and then the Warthog is it's like a weird two-axis thing that's always like wiggling around.
Yeah.
It's funny, yes.
It's half gelatin.
But man, is it frustrating to control.
And we will get to the fact that the last mission of this game involves you just driving a Warthog intensely.
I watched the final mission, and I was like, oh man, thank God I didn't have to do this.
So, my defense of the Warthog is actually different than it is funny, even though I do agree with that, and that is worthy of a plaque on the wall for why the Warthog is great. But the thing that I like about vehicles in Halo is because they all spoilers. It don't change.
No.
Yeah, the Warthog always controls like
That's
this.
so bizarre.
They leaned into it so hard, you have no idea. Every other Halo game was like, yes, this is what all vehicles need to be.
I'll never understand that decision.
The positive thing that comes out of it, though, is that all vehicles, land, sea, or air, I don't think they're sea vehicles in Halo, but just in case, control exactly the same way. Like, there's never a learning curve where you have to, like, understand how to move around. You just get in, and when you move the camera, the vehicle turns in that direction. Like, that's just the way that it works. And I think that the flight controls with the Banshee were worth making the Warthog controls because, like, how often were you really in a Warthog? Like, three times?
3 times.
Yeah.
3 times. All right, we've got it.
Wow, this is a really good game that understood exactly how many times we were in a Warthog. Okay.
And like the more important controls are like the tank, which you have a ton of fucking like you've time and armor to deal with the controls in the tank. And then the Banshee, which if you don't know how to fly a Banshee immediately, you will die. So it's good that it controls the same way because it means that the pickup time is a lot faster. Did they need to extend that into 8 consecutive games? Probably not, but here we are with the same controls for the whole series, and so it's like kind of a unique thing, and is like a trademark Halo thing to me.
I can't understand why they decided to make it control that way, though.
You can get good at it. It's not random. It's not random.
You can get good at anything.
I know.
It's just like, why not just make it control like a vehicle in a video game?
Because it's so funny, Andy. It's so incredibly stupid, and it creates these emergent situations
I feel
that
like
are ridiculous.
The thing that it's lacking is some kind of justification for me.
I need to turn into a 12-year-old and immediately show you like a bunch of early YouTube Warthog compilation videos.
I'm not disagreeing. I think it is funny. I'm sure there are people who were great at it.
All these compilation videos aren't just comedy. Some of them are just like, oh, I did this cool 360 flip thing that I never actually tried to do, but did land perfectly. That the Warthog's ridiculous controls and center of gravity enable.
I want to say that there's like, I don't know if this is not a term that I've ever considered using before, but there's like a physical continuity to Halo in a way that is startling, given how weird everything feels at times. The fact that the Warthog controls like a slinky where you're holding the front of it and not the back of it and just moving it around with your hand is kind of in line with the way that Master Chief's jump feels, where you have like absolutely no air control whatsoever, but you jump like 50 feet in the air for no reason. And like ghosts bounce off of shit and do flips because they're like not on the ground. They have repulsors and like feel like gelatin. It's like a weirdness that is consistent through the whole game.
Yeah, Halo has its own perfectly consistent fictional gravity.
Yeah,
that's
bouncy
great.
physics.
It feels right on the ghosts, though. I thought the ghost felt incredible, and I loved the ghosts, but like the Warthog, it just didn't feel right to me.
It feels worse also because unless you have a guy in the gunner seat, you have no offensive capabilities beyond running a dude over, which you just cannot do reliably.
Nope.
So I totally feel your pain, and I assure you that a ton of people in 2001 also did, and I assume just Stockholmed into loving the Warthog controls. Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we get into final thoughts?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
The second or third line that the sergeant ever says in the very opening of the game. Is that, and this is just the most 2000 era cultural moment, is that you soldiers are going to run out there and you're going to strangle those aliens to death with their own guts. That is just is the exact maturity level that the game is and wanted to be. I have no follow-up for that. I just needed to make sure that it was here.
I have a very small follow-up, which is something that doesn't get talked about with Halo is that a lot of people like to talk about the fact that this game presents a mature story, which it kind of does. It's like a science fiction story, but it's like better told than most first-person shooter stories at the time. The game's sense of humor is incredibly juvenile in a way that is like almost like trademarked at this point.
Damn it, my phone's out of reach. There was... God, I can't remember it, but for how juvenile the humor was, the working project name of Halo before it was called Halo, before Microsoft bought it or anything else, was something so ridiculous that like people were reticent to tell it to their parents. God, why can't I think of this? It was like Mama Chunks or like Monkey Boner. Like it was like that tier.
But I'm sure it was not.
You have to
Monkey Boner.
It was fucking close to Monkey Boner.
Well, there's a skull, and in addition to that, like a segment, like the levels have individual like named segments in them. In Assault on the Control Room, the first segment is called "I Would Have Been Your Daddy," and the follow-up is, but the dog beat me over the fence. Like, that is, and they've brought that joke back.
What?
Like, it's in the sequel as well.
Oh my god.
Like, so it's just, and like the grunts and their like real like high-pitched voices running around and like screaming about shit. Like, everything is very like cartoony in the way that like the humor is presented, but the game does not acknowledge that ever.
Oh yeah, you can. It's like the game wants to be serious, but the developers allowed enough of themselves into the game to let you know that they were super into Happy Tree Friends when that was around.
I don't know how to Google that in a way to find it.
All right, stop the goddamn podcast. I have found the source. You making fun of me. Oh, it's not Monkey Boner. It's not Monkey Boner. You know what the actual name of the project's working title was? It was Monkey Nuts.
God damn it! Why would they call it? It's working title. I don't know. I'm not big on the industry lingo.
No, this was never. This was
going
never
to be a released thing.
No, it was never. Before they knew what the title was, they just called the game Monkey Nuts to themselves. Which is fair, because clearly they wanted to make something serious. They cared about like the aesthetics of what they were releasing very much. They just also were making video games like in 2000.
Yeah, so and Monkey Nuts just came to mind.
Yeah, it was just real funny, that Monkey Nuts joke.
The only other things I have are that the robot in the library level is Wheatley 1.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's has like a vaguely British accent. He floats around and looks identical to how the what were the spheres?
I don't know.
Whatever they were,
AI cores?
Yeah. In Portal do. And he does like an interface thing.
Yep, and he's got the blue eye.
I don't know, it was probably because I have literally maybe the worst audio setup I could ever conceive of when I'm not wearing headphones and playing things on my PC. I could not understand a word of what he was saying most of the time and didn't really care.
The heavy echo on everything he says.
That's what
it sounds like there's like he's speaking, and they were like, "Where's the voice going to be coming from? Probably inside of the middle of it, right?" So they put like a layer over top of it where it's just hard to hear.
Can I take a moment to explain to both of you what my current audio setup is?
Sure.
Yeah, at my house. Okay, so my computer doesn't have an audio card. It is just using the onboard audio systems and running the... Oh, you're already cringing. I'm so happy about this, chat. Okay, so it's running through the onboard audio systems of a motherboard from like 2013.
Okay.
And then through the HDMI port of that, it is connected to a Vizio television, a nice 1080p Vizio from like 2000 and I want to say 14, something around there. And the audio of that Vizio TV is broken in such a way that the speakers hum, and I can't use the onboard speakers of the television, and it like way over basses everything that comes into the TV through any source. So I have that plugged into the aux jack of the television. I have plugged in the like terrible half-broken speakers that I used for our D&D campaign. That's also 10 years old, and I have those set up at different points. So I have like 4 different volume knobs that I can adjust at any point, and I have the exact numbers written down that they all need to be.
Why don't you just wear headphones?
Because the headphone jack on the actual tower is like loose or broken in some way.
So you lose like the audio if you move in the wrong way.
Correct. Yeah. I can't really deal with that.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I'm scavenging real well, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm good at
it. In relation to audio, the only other thing I have left is the soundtrack of this game slaps.
It absolutely slaps.
Oh, yeah.
And on top of that, they have these like cool music cues in the game where like when you do certain things or come at things from an angle or whatever, it'll start the music so that it like syncs up well with whatever's going on. And I thought that was very cool. except for when you're repeating a level a whole bunch of times because you suck and played on a difficulty that's too high for your skill level, in which case you hear the same cues a lot or just spend a lot of time in silence, which I definitely did.
Oh, did you guys ever get locked in a Womp loop?
A womp?
Womp.
Yeah, where it goes like Womp, Womp. That sounds like no. Your expression
It sounds like maybe your broken audio equipment had something to do with it.
It could be. I may have to investigate this. But there
Has
were
this ever happened to you on another game, JJ?
no.
Are you sure?
Yes. But there was moments, a couple of times when, this is understandable, it's an old damn game, where I would miss or break the triggered sequences in such a way where I would create forward progress in a way that the game did not expect me to create forward progress. And there was like one time where I walked on foot in a segment that was clearly visually designed to be a Warthog segment forever, and had to stop after like 20 actual real life minutes when there was a jump that I couldn't clear because I didn't have a Warthog. I had to turn around and walk all the way back because I hit like 3 quick saves, and it was complete silence and the audio never shifted with me and no enemies spawned, and it just did the Womp loop.
Just the womp loop.
Just the Womp loop, and it was so bad that I just turned the audio off because I didn't want to hear the Womp sound anymore.
But
I didn't want to turn around physically or digitally with my digital body because I wanted to see how long I could do this, and I found out, and it wasn't satisfying.
No, it almost never is, from my experience.
No.
Do we have...
Fuck.
Fuck.
Master thoughts.
Do we have...
Good game.
Chief thoughts?
Game is good.
I feel like that's very on brand for you.
It is, yeah.
Honestly.
I have no... This game has depth in its cultural context, but it doesn't have depth, at least in my significant depth, in the way that you would treat it as a piece today. I don't have any like meaningful summations of what Halo means or how it made me feel, because it didn't make me feel much of anything, like all games of that shooter variety. I hate shooters, and your emotions are bad. It was enjoyable. It was smooth. It was designed to be content that was consumed and brought joy to my life for a small period of time. And there's no depth to it, and I didn't learn or grow. I just did a thing for about 10 hours, and it was fine.
To follow up on a question that we asked you, and by asked you, I mean was sort of generally posed outside of the podcast, if you were to recommend somebody to start playing a Halo game, which one would you suggest?
Just play 2. Just play Halo 2.
Halo 2?
I can't... It's been quite a long time, but I can't think of a thing that this game did better than the campaign of Halo 2. And all you need to know going forward is there is a space war between humans and the non-humans, and also the Flood exists and is our threat. And that's pretty much it.
See, and that, I think... I'm going to take your final thoughts spot, Andy. Take that. Summarizes mine pretty well, because I think that this game is good, and I think that for the time, and we did discuss this, like the impact that this game had and how much stuff that was in this game sort of went on to become staples of the genre. But its sequels did it better, and it's kind of bizarre, honestly, to say that in a world where a lot of sequels tend to not do, like, they miss what is good about the originals. But I think because of the short development time and the fact that Halo 2 was like such an inevitability after the success of Halo 1, they knew what was done right, they knew what they had rushed on, and they just put out something that just kicked ass harder than the original version.
Hell yeah. 100%.
So Halo 1 is still a good game. It is still not terrible, and it still plays well. But I wouldn't recommend revisiting it for no reason. The end.
I guess my final thoughts are, in my younger and more vulnerable years, I kind of had like a shooter bias. I didn't really like shooter games of any kind, really. And Halo was like the granddaddy of that, is what made them popular, and I really kind of resented Halo and the Xbox because of that. And Halo was the thing that came to mind when I thought of what a lame game was, until Call of Duty usurped it.
Right.
But coming back to it now, there's a lot more to enjoy, like, to me, than I expected to find. Like I called out, like, the soundtrack is really good. The environmental design is interesting. The enemy designs are like cool aliens that are all like color coded in a very like video gamey design way that they stick in your mind. And it's just like all stuff like I expected a more stereotypically drab and like macho shooter, like however buff guy
buff guy games
kind of thing, and Halo really isn't that. It's still a shooter though, and my gripes with just general shooter conventions all still stand here. I didn't enjoy it as much as most people will, but I still did like this game, and I think that's a testament to its why it became so popular, if even I enjoyed playing it.
Now we just gotta get you into Halo Reach.
Can't wait to play it.
That's gonna sound like we invented that, like the way that we were so on cue. Take that, Ego Raptor.
What's he doing these days?
Let's
Game
plays,
Grumps?
because that's what
Yeah.
the YouTube algorithm implies that one ought to be doing.
Right.
I see that once again we've watched the same YouTube video within the last 24 hours.
Hell yeah!
You were there also.
Yeah.
No cultural diversity. We have found our comfort zone.
Fucking Dan Olson. Thank you for listening to NOCLIP this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about Ghost Trick Phantom Detective.
Oh god, that sounds terrible. I'm out of here.
Because it is Mystery May in June, brought to you by the novel coronavirus.
Yeah, so which one do you think is better? Mystery J for June or Nancy June?
Nancy June.
All right, now Mystery May is now Nancy June.
Nancy
everybody.
June. So join us then for Ghost Trick. And until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our
I'll be back when you guys play a real game like Halo 2. See you then.
Goodbye, JJ.
Bye.
Goodbye forever. He's finally gone.
And until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com. There you can find links to our old episodes, like you can listen to Andy experience Modern Warfare for the first time. We talked about Call of Duty 4. And then you can find our Twitter, our Discord, where you can come talk about the games, and YouTube. I don't think I mentioned that one. There's a cool playlist on the front page you can look at and click on all of our episodes in sequence to get all of their view numbers up.
This is what happens when you just let Chad talk.
I never know when to stop talking.
Smash that like
Smash
button.
that like button. Melee attack
Yeah,
that like button.
just check it with your elbow like Master Chief.
I know nothing of the Baja Men. Please forgive me.